Let's chat.
Let's chat.
What is shame, Heather?
Oh, we're jumping right in.
Well, that's what this is for.
Yeah, that's so true.
What is it? We're designed for depth, not we don't want to go surface level, so why start on the surface?
Yeah, I think that's what's hard though. Like, I think that's what makes the intensity of this work so interesting is that we just like jump right in all of the time. And when I think about shame, the thing that's been coming up lately is that people want to like have this exact definition of it, when in reality, I feel like it's such more like an experience that you have when you're around someone. Like when someone is in shame and actively reacting out of it, I feel it more than I can describe it. And I think, I mean, there's so many brilliant people out there that have tried to describe and create definitions of what this thing is. And I think the thing that you and I have been working on with this whole project has been like, how do we show what it looks like in relationships rather than like we needing a succinct definition?
I like that. As you were talking though, like you're essentially describing an advanced shame expert.
Oh.
Whereas like the people that we work with quite a bit are like, they don't feel a lot in general, or because when you're describing, it's almost like you're saying like physically you can sense it. Like you can, or is it different?
Oh, I guess that's a good question. Do you mean like how do other people experience it, or how do I experience it? Because if you're asking what shame is, it is a embodied experience for each of us.
Yeah.
Because shame is relational. It's not in isolation, but so many people go into isolation because of shame.
Which is a different way of describing it than even how traditional like shame experts would describe it now, which is more, but it's all about me and how I feel about me. What you're describing is something that is a product of a relationship.
Yeah.
So that's different.
Okay.
So we're already setting ourselves apart.
Okay. Yeah.
But for those people who have a hard time thinking about other people, shame is taking almost a different form.
Say more. What do you mean by that?
They're making it all about them.
Yes.
Which I think you and I have talked a lot about. We might describe that's somebody who is dealing with their shame in an unhealthy way. So I think what's hard is like, it's hard to understand a subject without defining it or talking about it. But really where we want people to get to is how do we experience and deal with shame in relationship? Because that's typically where it's going to show up.
Well, why is shame a problem in relationships?
Well, I think in part because I've made it like we're in a relationship. If I'm feeling shame and it's all about me, there's something missing from that dynamic, and it's your experience.
And then I have to overcompensate because you're stuck in a spot.
Yeah.
That makes it problematic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets in the way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it gets in the way of so many things. It gets in the way of just like engaging in conversation. It gets in the way of feeling connected to people. And the reason why people feel like shame is such a personal thing is that it isolates them when they're in it and they can't have access to connection or empathy or engagement with others.
Yeah, and then it puts the other person in the position of having to, like you said, overcompensate and really bear the emotional burden of the individual who's experiencing the shame and dealing with it in really kind of crappy ways. They have to take responsibility. They have to take all the emotional burden. And essentially kind of be a parent in a relationship of two adults, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
I've been told.
That is problematic. Yeah, it is problematic. So like then why are people so like why is shame such a hard topic to talk about?
I think in part I think culturally speaking, shame has been labeled as bad. So like it starts off as if it's like a bad thing. And anything that is bad, why would you want anything to do with the bad thing? And so I do think in part, like as a collective culture, we haven't done that experience a service because we've labeled it this icky thing that we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
And if it's something that we need to get rid of, why would I want to acknowledge it that it exists in me in general? Because that means I'm doing something bad.
Or even like, why would I want to bring it to the front?
Yeah. Why would I want to look at it, touch it, pay attention to it, talk about it? If it's a bad thing, I would rather pretend like I don't do bad things and be squeaky clean than talk about it, especially in a relationship with somebody. And so I think that is a big issue is it's this big bad boogeyman, especially in therapeutic offices and self-help at whatever it is the bad thing that you need to get rid of. And I don't drive with that.
Fair.
I also think I'm going to go back to where we started, which is like, what is shame? I've been borrowing something that I think I first heard it from you, but it is, I think shame in its simplest form is our body operating as it meant to, which is like, hey, my alarm system is going off. I'm operating outside of my value system. I also think in its healthiest version, it's letting me know that I'm not just operating outside of my value system, that is having an impact on the people that either depend on me, that I care about, and that I love. So it's my body telling me, hey, you're hurting and harming people, and you're operating outside of your value system. Pay attention.
Absolutely. I think it uses one of my favorite words, which I have a lot of favorites, as you will learn to know about me. So many favorites, but one of my favorite words is integrity. I think that shame operates out of our integrity system, and that shame really is an integrity system alarm, like you're talking about, that when I'm out of integrity, when I'm out of my values of who I truly am as a person, my body is saying, nope, alarm, alarm, alarm. But how the alarm shows up is what people don't understand. And when you don't understand the alarm system of your own self and you're not actually in your body, it's hard to know that you're in shame. It's hard to know what your values are. So much, I know early on as a therapist, there were so many people that were doing like value sorts and what are your values and what do you value as a person? And I was like, snooze fest. I don't want to participate in that value system thing. And to me, it felt like it was just so elementary. And turns out elementary is the things that we need to go back to. So often when we're thinking about shame, the goal is actually about like, how do we understand what our values are? Because that helps us understand when we're out of alignment.
I like that a lot. It helps you not just pay attention to the alarm system going off, but actually build one that's effective and build one that you have to pay attention to. How do you figure out what your values are?
That's a really great question. Well, you could do the value sort card thing. You could go through an exercise, and sometimes that's helpful of like, what are the things, but it's hard because we also want to name our values based on community and relationship and what other people may want from us. And so it takes really like some deeper digging in our own selves to figure out what our value system is. I know for myself, one of my biggest values in life is for people to feel safe. And I had a pretty big wake-up call recently, which is like, I make everybody else safe, and since safety is part of my own like value system, like, am I prioritizing my own safety or just other people's? And that's not living fully in my integrity system. And so what happens in that is that if I prioritize everybody else's safety over my own, I then engage in caretaking behaviors if I'm not prioritizing my own safety, which is like a version of shame that shows up of like, oh, like I'm not doing this thing that I hold so dear to myself and I will do it for you. I'll make sure you're safe. But prioritizing my own safety is also part of my integrity system. And when I'm out of alignment, lots of things start to shift and change. And it's like, wake up, Heather, knock, knock.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. This shit's important. And it doesn't mean that my whole life falls apart, but it means that something happens that I have to make a change. I have to reprioritize that. So to go back, I didn't fully answer your question, which is, how do we know what our values are? We know what our values are based on how we want to treat other people, but also how we want to be treated, how we want to be, and how we want to experience life.
I like that. I think, and you can correct me if you see this differently, in the context of relationships, I may come to the table knowing what my values are, and I also can learn what another person's value systems are, or are, meaning like we have two different value systems, yet we do a lot of work together. A lot of values we probably share. Some may be more priority than others. But in that, we get to know one another, and then we get to actively choose each other within that value system. Or I can say, hey, not my value, F off, but something happened today that was interesting. I told you I was a little cranky this morning.
Yes, you did.
And I know this about me, and I know when I'm cranky, it's my responsibility to deal with my crankies and not let that rub off on other people. And I walked into my office, and I looked at my whiteboard, and there was like a grid. And immediately I thought Heather was here.
Which is true. If that did happen, I was there.
And if I would have stayed in like my crankies, I could have been like, oh shit, here we go. But what I saw was like, oh, she's super excited about something, because I know when she's excited about something, like it's like, like, and so it's like, I know that was about you. It wasn't about me, even though I'm crabby. I'm not crabby anymore. I was crabby yesterday. I want to make a caveat. I'm feeling way less crabby.
I'm grateful for that.
But I saw that, and it's like, I could be overwhelmed by that. I could be like, oh crap, I gotta buckle up and get into work mode or whatever it is. But instead it's like, what's being communicated to me that has nothing to do with me?
Yeah.
I could have made it all about myself. Instead, I looked at that and I thought, Heather's pumped about something. And usually when Heather's pumped about something, that means magic is about to happen. Yes. And I like magic being happen. So I have that value. Like, I want to make magic. Therefore, I want to hear what Heather's excited about, because this thing looks cool and I don't understand it yet.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is like how normal emotions can disrupt our ability to be in our value system.
Yes.
Because like that's a normal emotion to be crabby. I was volunteering yesterday for the Special Olympics. I told you a little bit about it. And one of the things that we were doing this mental health screening, and it's a bunch of questions. Like, it starts off with like, are you very, very lonely? And like the answers are not a lot, sometimes, and always. And it goes through my favorite question that it got to every single time. It says, are you ever grumpy? And like,
yes.
And when people said no, I was like, I believe them. Like, I believe that they don't feel grumpy. But most people looked at me and they're like, yeah. And it was like the sweetest thing, because it's like, yeah, we're all grumpy. I mean, like, the Snickers commercial exists for a reason, which is like, I am notorious for hangry. Like, my family, most of the people know me. If I'm grumpy, they're like, when's the last time you ate? But so like, those are normal emotions. But if you would get stuck in that and you would have been upset with me and said, Heather, I like my whiteboard to be clean. Could you have asked me first? I would have honored that and been like, oh my God, yes, of course, Austin, I am so sorry for doing that. And like, then I would have been on edge with you. And so then therefore I would have been responding to whatever it is that you have going on, and I would be on edge. And if that would have continued over time, our relationship would change.
We wouldn't be doing podcasts anymore.
We wouldn't be doing podcasts. We wouldn't be able to sit around and talk with people. But like, because one, you know me, and you know that this is something that like when I have an idea, I'm like, all right, ready. And usually you're like, Heather, one at a time. And I'm like, I can't do one at a time. Cool. Thanks for asking. I will just go tell everybody else then. But you've also learned that doesn't mean that I need you to act this moment. What you've learned is that I'm excited. Let's talk about this thing. I also know you really respect your space to feel like yours. So I'm never going to do something that would make you feel like your space isn't still yours. And I know that. But I know that whiteboard you also love. So I'm going to draw on the whiteboard and be like, oh, look at this idea, which I also like. I don't know the right word to describe it, but like I knew you would feel something when you saw it.
Well, you also know that is one way that I can actually digest information.
Correct.
If you were to just sit down and talk to me about it, I may ask you, can you just draw it for me?
Yes. And I did. I also had a piece of paper that had the exact thing on it. I thought about leaving it on your desk. And I was like, that's actually more invasive to him because I'm crossing the threshold over to your desk. And I was like, no, the whiteboard is on the side that I usually sit on. This is safer territory. If I put something, I don't think you'd be mad at me, but like, I just know that that's a little bit more invasive than drawing on the whiteboard.
Yeah. And so what you're describing is you actually you thought about me.
I did.
You did something, and I could have just said, why the hell did you touch my whiteboard? You turd.
Yes.
I never would call you a turd, but
I'm not a turd. I mean, some people might think I'm a turd, but there's reasons for that.
And so all this gets missed, though, when we make it all about ourselves.
Correct.
And that's, I think, where I come back to in like its unhealthiest version, when shame is all about me all the time.
Yeah.
It misses every other party that's a part of this dynamic. And so something gets missed inevitably.
Yes. Well, okay, so now you're jumping into another topic, which is something we talk about a lot, which is like healthy versus unhealthy shame. And I think people have a hard time with that because it feels like all shame is bad, all shame is unhealthy, and you and I think very differently about that. I mean, we think similarly together, but different from that concept.
Yeah, and I think it's okay. Maybe it's helpful to just say shame isn't bad. It's not a bad thing inherently. It is your body having a response to something. What we do with it is when things become dysfunctional and unhealthy and harmful.
I'm grateful for my shame system, though it doesn't feel great because I don't like to be embarrassed. That was something I've had to work really hard about throughout my life is I didn't like to be embarrassed. I don't like the way that feels because what I learned is that my embarrassment was actually about me carrying other people's shame and their own discomfort, but I'm a really good vessel for holding on to your discomfort, or I was, not anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm continuing. I think it's a lifelong process.
Oh, yeah.
But my embarrassment was really about other people's stuff that they weren't managing. And I was like, I got this. Little did I know that it was what I was doing was holding on to all of their unhealthy shame that they were putting, or maybe even healthy shame. I don't know which word it is at this point, actually. It's just they were dumping their shame on me. And so I felt embarrassed and shame all at the same time.
I do think that is an unhealthy action. I think, like, I appreciate the benefit of the doubt you're providing, but I think anybody who's taking their shame and handing it over to somebody else is participating in something that's dysfunctional, because most likely it's happening covertly and without being named. Like, I'm not asking you permission. Will you hold this shame for me, Heather?
Yeah.
It's done in much more subtle, covert ways, which I know I don't want to get too into the weeds in that, but I think that just behavior in general it starts to disrupt the relational dynamic.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's break that down. So I guess the reason why it came out so quickly is that I'm not slowing it down. Their shame that they experience when I get embarrassed is because they did something out of their value system. So the shame is actually healthy. They should feel that shame. I hate, shoulds, whatever. But like that shame is a natural response that comes up, that they probably shouldn't put this like young girl, young woman, however old I was, in a position to feel that way.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with it on their own, they made it a joke or made it something funny. Then it got passed to me. That's the unhealthy part of it.
Piece.
So that's why it's confusing. Like I was like, I don't know which one it is. It's because it's all of it. But because they weren't handling it or taking care of it, it then was mine to deal with.
Yeah, so where it started was healthy, they recognized it. And then it just quickly moves into a dysfunctional, unhealthy posture.
Well, I just think about this is a silly example, but just so many of the sexual innuendo jokes or different things that are like demeaning towards women. I learned early on, like, oh, you just go and laugh it off. That's not my real laugh. Let's be very clear. Not my laugh, but like I was taught you like laugh, and now I've learned to say, what's funny about that? So I can pass it back, but I didn't know that. Socially, I grew up in a way that like, oh no, you laugh, you just like make them feel comfortable. And so their shame then, so like that embarrassment that I would feel is that I was uncomfortable with what they were saying, but my response was conditioned to be like, don't make them uncomfortable. They already are. Make it okay for them.
So you're taking care of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's the unhealthy part of it.
Yeah.
They were feeling shame that they should feel.
Yeah.
And then what happened to it was that I got to take care of it. I had to laugh and giggle and make them not feel uncomfortable. They just said a very inappropriate joke to someone who's 40 years younger than them.
Dicey. So you want to put the shame back where it belongs.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I did not know that was shame for the longest time. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do.
You were trained.
I was trained. And then I thought like, oh, this is just how you operate. This is what you do. And it has been years of undoing that whole process and constantly like checking in of like, what is my value system? I value women being treated well. I value people being treated well, not just women, but people in general. And that wasn't treating me well.
No.
That was putting me in a position to have to think about women in this way as less than or one down or not as important. And I just don't believe in that.
So you're talking about a couple things here. We're essentially saying shame is an essential human emotion, specifically within the context of relationships. But then out of that, there are kind of two things that I hear. One, in order for it to be healthy, it requires me to take responsibility for that, which is mine, which is my shame. What role, if any, is on the person who takes on the shame? Meaning you're articulating like you took it on.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is you were trained to do that.
Yeah.
That seems a little bit like, oh, shoot, what's your responsibility in that dynamic then? If we're kind of playing this out, let's say I'm the one that made the nasty joke and, I'm not holding on to my shame, but now I'm taking responsibility for that. I'm not putting you in that position. That's my role. But if we're talking about the context of relationships, what is the role or responsibility of the person who's been doing a lot of the carrying of the shame that isn't theirs?
Ooh, responsibility.
I knew you'd like that word.
I know. The funny part is, as you were saying that, I'm like, I'm the one who wanted the tree where it is right now, and you keep hitting it with your hand, and I feel bad because I'm the one who asked for it to be there, and like you keep on like hitting it, and I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry because I wanted the tree there, but
I haven't thought about the tree once since you mentioned it.
Every time you hit it, I think about it. Okay, back to your question, which is like, whose responsibility is it in that moment, or what am I responsible for?
Or or are you, right? Because we're talking about this relational dynamic where and maybe I'm answering my own question to a degree, because what you just identified was you weren't relying on the person to determine whether or not that joke was unhealthy or not. You were just saying, I'm not going to take your shame anymore. And you essentially initiated the process of healing, I would call it, of learning how to hand that shame back. That seems backwards since you're not the one who's actually doing the shitty thing.
Yeah. So do you want a real life example?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So of course there's that. And so I own a condo, and there is a person who brings my packages to my door. I'm the only person in the building that I think he brings the packages to.
Is it, and it's not the delivery person?
It is not. I mean, sometimes Amazon does.
Okay.
But I know this, and I've known it for a while. And yesterday, like I said earlier, I was going to volunteer at Special Olympics, and I see him, and I know who it is. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Hey, you've been gone for a while." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been really busy." Like all of a sudden I'm like in the role of like, "Yeah, I've been really busy." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what part of my voice am I using?" Right? And then it turned out like, "Oh, I've been moving your packages." I have so badly wanted to say to this person, "Stop moving my packages." And in that moment, I didn't do it. And I woke up this morning and I was like, "Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you say, stop touching my packages?"
What'd you come up with?
Well, I could write him a letter. I could say all these things. But the shame that happened in there is that this person feels like they're doing me a favor. And really, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. Stop moving my packages. Stop touching my things. I have to crawl over it every time I get home. I shouldn't say that. I don't have that many packages coming to my house. I'm making it sound a little bit dramatic here, but I fall into myself at times when, one, there's a giant age difference. I don't want someone to feel bad. Am I responsible to make and take care of him? Yeah, that's all of a sudden what I'm doing. Yeah. So my own responsibility in that moment is like, don't make this person feel bad for what they're doing. He thinks he's doing me a favor. When in reality, I find it deeply uncomfortable that you know when I'm home or not.
Yeah.
And how do I stand up for myself and say, hey, don't do that? And that's something, it's an ongoing thing. I don't have it perfectly down, but I wish that version of me would have said, hey, you think you're doing this like nice thing for me, but I'd actually appreciate if you leave my packages where they were.
And what a beautiful way to be both assertive, but also not take care of the person.
Yeah, but I'm so programmed to be like, you live in community, don't mess it up. It's not that big of a deal. All of those things that say, like, just like be a little bit smaller, Heather. Don't make your needs important. And so I don't know if I'm getting completely away from your question, but I felt like this is a really good example of like how it shows up in such a small way. And so whose responsibility is it in that moment? It apparently is my responsibility to do the right thing, to take care of myself.
Yeah, and that's where I think I find myself more often than not really irritated, is because often the person leading the charge of change is the person who's actually not the one causing the harm. And I wish it wasn't the case.
Yeah. The thing is that I find different, and like, I think we're all on our own healing journeys. And I think that a huge part of like this podcast, this work that we're doing, for me is 15 years in the making. And I haven't wanted to find myself in this seat because I didn't know if I was ready, if I had enough information, if I was going to be able to explain it clearly, if I was going to like be able to provide anything. But what I found is that like I don't have to do this perfect. It's actually better if I don't have this all worked out. The thing that I do know is I can see it and recognize it almost immediately. I knew exactly after that happened yesterday what went on. And I want to do it different. And I'm continuing to figure out what sounds like me. Because I say this to my clients all the time. Once you see it, you can't unsee it anymore. And when you can't unsee it, you start doing things differently, but sometimes it doesn't happen in the moment. And I think that's what's really challenging. So many people want to know, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do right now? How do I make this change? And there's people all over the internet trying to say, here's what you do, here's how the 5 steps to do it, and here's all the ways in which you heal this one thing. And sure, there might be some really great things. I'm all for that. Go do whatever works for you. But like, ooh, I'm getting so passionate here. It's not about just like this 5-step protocol. It's about how do you recognize it and how do you start figuring out what is most true for myself. I could say things like you have great one-liners. I love them. But if they don't feel like me yet, I'm only borrowing your courage. And then eventually it's like, okay, well, do I have enough courage to do it? Or do I still need to sound like Austin? I don't know. Like, I just think that it's so nuanced and people figure out their way through it. And the best way to do this is really about recognition and like being able to share this story.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about it.
What I love about that too is you're acknowledging, one, it's uncomfortable to be aware that I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing.
Yeah.
Right. You're essentially saying like you have a value system that prioritizes your own safety as well as others, not one or the other. It's both. And in this moment, you chose to prioritize one over the other.
Correct.
You recognize it in real time, but you're also tolerant enough with that discomfort to know, like, I can't, it's just because I didn't do this in real time doesn't mean anything about me or him. It's just, I know I can do this differently moving forward.
Correct. So the shame response that I experience when I'm out of my own integrity isn't that I am going to go fall into myself and not be able to do the activity that I was about to set off and do for the day. Instead, it means I want to do it different and I'm going to keep on looking at this. I am grateful for that shame response that popped up, that alert system. I didn't fall in. I didn't lose myself for the day. Instead, it was like, ooh, that didn't hit the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, it's like getting a recall notice on your car. You can either deal with it or you can just kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
But if you ignore too many of those, you might actually have a problem on your hand that's really getting out of hand.
And I bet some people will say that, like, that's not shame. Okay.
Cool.
Great. I live in the camp of, like, I don't care what you call it, as long as you're recognizing what's happening. I know people want to name things, and, like, of course, naming something accurately is so helpful. I agree. But we get so lost on naming everything, and it has to be a certain thing. What we're talking about is, where is essentially the covert manipulation there? Because like what it was is that what he wanted me to do in that moment is be grateful for him.
Yeah.
He wanted me to be grateful that my packages are moved. Now, when I tell you where the mail room is, where my package sits to where my door is, guess how many feet this is? Feet. We're on the same floor.
10.
About 10 to 15 feet. I can see it from my door. I don't need my package to be moved. I don't need to be grateful that you moved it, but that's what you want. You want to show that you're doing something for me, but I didn't ask for that.
Yeah, and coupled with the fact that the helping of the packages is in conjunction with monitoring your whereabouts on a daily basis.
Right, so that's a shame response that you should be having.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
And so it's not shame in the fact that, like, I am taking on shame. It's that my safety that I prioritize about standing up for myself, that moved. And on top of it, I felt this thing coming at me. So multiple things got activated in there.
Yeah. Can I play devil's advocate?
Absolutely.
Because as you're talking about this, in my mind goes to all of those messages that might try to keep you on assignment to say, it's just your packages. What's the big deal?
Yes, that went through my head at one point. What's the big deal? It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal that you have your packages moved. It's not that big of a deal that these things are happening. So what? He wants something to do. He's got nothing else to do. I don't know what else is happening. Maybe that's the only fun thing he has to do in a day. I don't know. But the thing that happens in that, my needs go out the door.
Yes.
And I can think about all of those reasons. Like, I grew up in a time where, like, when someone was mean to you, the question that a lot of times my parents or other caregivers or other adults would say is like, well, what was your role in it? And so I have been conditioned to think about what is my role in something. And I'm really good at it. I'm really good at figuring out what my role is. And luckily, I've been working with a lovely therapist that's like, stop balancing the scale so much. When people really harm you, that's not helpful. And so you're bringing up a great question that so often, yes, of course, I can tell you all the ways in which that's just a normal thing that this person's doing. But it
comes at your expense.
It comes at my expense. And it is this thing that, like, is almost like, it's interesting that this is kind of coming to me all at once. It's like, it's this little reminder of like, oh, Heather, you're still making yourself small in some ways.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Why are other people more important than you? And I mean, the work I do, the things I do, volunteer experiences, places I go into, I always want to make everyone feel like they are seen and all of that. And this whole package thing, you're not seeing me. Because if you saw me, you would see how deeply uncomfortable I am, and you would have read in our condo minutes that you should not be moving packages, because that was me saying, don't do that.
I love that. It reminds me of when you talk about training, I think about how kids get trained so quickly and early on to care up. And I think about how, like, if my parents or my wife's parents come over, they'll say, like, I love you to the kids. And I'll even catch myself doing this, like, say I love you, like telling my kids to say it back. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, what? Who's that for? And why am I telling them to kind of caretake to their grandparents when really it's the grandparents and the parents' role to take care of the kids?
Yeah, break that down a little bit more, because that's big.
It is, because I think where I actually feel more firm in it is this, like, physical touch with my kids. And I think I see this a lot with, every kid is different, but I mean, grandparents love their grandkids for the most part. And I can speak to both my parents and my wife's parents, like, they love their grandkids. But that doesn't mean the grandkids want to show and express that affection in the same way. They do it very differently, or at the same time. Right? They might express it when grandma and grandpa aren't around and say, I want to go to grandma and grandpa's house. That's their way of expressing it. Right? But it's not in grandma and grandpa walking out the door and mom and dad forcing them to touch them by hugging them, because they don't want that. And this is one thing I really admire about my oldest is, like, I watch him say no, and I absolutely love it. One, because it's something that I know I didn't have when I was his age. It was like I was responsible to take care of a lot of things. But watching him essentially deny hugs, I'm like, it's one of my more prouder moments as a parent of him, which is kind of a weird thing to say, for him to be able to stand in his agency and say, no, I don't want to hug right now. I don't want to be touched, and I don't want to touch you. It's like, where did we go off and think that it was okay to deny people their agency to be able to say, or whether or not they want to touch somebody?
I love that. I think agency and respect get so weaponized, or respect is, because, like, what I hear in that, like, you could come back and the counter argument could be like, well, you need to teach your kids how to respect their elders.
I cringe at hearing that.
Oh.
Or you could just act in respectful ways. That's what I want to say in return, and a little snarkily too.
Yeah. But, like, there is a thing about, like, how do you teach people to be in community and engagement? Like, I've met your kids, like, I'll ask them about their day, and, like, your wife will help, like, prompt them on, like, what to say. And sometimes I want to be like, you don't have to do that. They don't need to, like, tell me what they did today. Yeah. Just because I'm asking doesn't mean that they need to say. But, like, part of that is, like, how do you teach kids to be in in relationship, but what you're talking about is you also have to teach kids how to have boundaries.
Yes.
And that it's okay for them to have boundaries, and it's okay for them to have an ability to say no, and that you can work with them on how to engage with this in something that feels comfortable to them.
Yeah, otherwise, what we may be doing inadvertently is using our children to manage shame that is our part of the system, which I'm not going to open up that can of worms.
No, I just realized that as I was saying all of this, I'm like, we're bringing up a lot of things that will bring up some controversy because we also don't have a ton of time to go into all of those things.
No, we do not. And maybe that's a good spot for us to table and know that we will get into those things, but we want to get in at more of a depth. But to start, what I hear is shame isn't bad. If you want to call it something else, go for it. You're not going to offend us.
No.
But if you're asking us, shame ain't bad.
No.
It's actually a healthy functioning emotion that occurs within the context of a relationship. Lets you know that you're operating outside of your values, and that's having an impact on the people that you say you care about.
And so I would say that the unhealthy version of shame, as we're like walking through all of this, unhealthy shame is the shame I carry that is not my own.
Yes.
The shame of that experience that I talked about with the packages. Like, that's not my shame. I know it's not, so I'm not taking it on. I know I responded out of it. But there's also generations of shame that we all have carried of, like, messages and things that are not, like, I don't know why, dug through or explored or examined, or, like, how do we, like, move that out of our own system, if you will. And that gets really confusing because people thinking about carried emotions, like Pia Melody's work on carried emotions is brilliant. And I love the way that she explains carried emotions. When the caretaker or person doesn't manage their emotions, they spill out onto other people. And even like the withholding of emotions can then turn into carried. Like, there's so much brilliant work there. I don't want to go into all of that today, but that idea of carried emotions is such a helpful tool to be able to understand, how do I know the difference between me and other people?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Unmasking Shame is all about. How do we help people see the shame that they carry, that they have? How do we help them see the shame that's not theirs, that they carry, and how to learn how to separate themselves from others and also stay in relationship? No big task, no little task. How do you say that? I don't know.
No small task?
Small task, that's what I was looking for.
There you go. So where can people go to figure out how to do this, or if they're doing it? What do we got for them?
We have lots of things.
We do.
And I feel like you need to talk about it because I've been talking a lot today.
It's all right. So this is something like we want to give to people. We want to share it with people. We want to make it accessible to people. So whether that's we're going to have courses online. We're going to have workshops. We intensives if you're wanting to do really deep work. But in July 15th, we have a 3-hour workshop that introduces this topic, and it'll basically what we talked about. We'll go into a lot more depth.
Yep. We'll really get into the weapons.
Yes.
And because what we haven't talked about today, and we will, are we've really identified these 5 core ways that people weaponize shame. And there's a lot of nuances to them, but the workshop really digs into those and how they show up and what they look like and how people respond to them and how emotions and shame gets passed around.
Yeah, we want to help people recognize the ways in which they're harming people. And that is uncomfortable. And so when we do these workshops, one of the things that we've realized is people want more and they're quite uncomfortable. And I think that's a beautiful tandem because it shows how hungry people are, I believe, to disrupt the dynamics that are showing up and maybe even more accepting or willing to engage in some of that more uncomfortable work of just naming what's happening, shining a light on it. And so that first workshop is really to kind of shine a really bright light on a really ugly picture of how shame is weaponized in relationships. And we want to teach people how to do that. So that's July 15th at Plymouth Community Center from 5 to 8 p.m.
Yes. Yeah. I think the other thing that I was thinking about as you were saying that is that the goal of that workshop is really about how to to see and shed a light onto things so that you no longer can look away from it.
Can't ignore it. So it's not what you're saying, or what I hear you saying is you're not going to leave with a lot of answers. You're not going to leave with a lot of to-dos. You're not going to leave with 5 steps to stop doing this thing. You're going to leave with a more clear vision of what the heck is going on in your relationships.
Yeah. The word that came to mind as you were saying that is clarity. And I think about some of the different visuals. I think about like you can say we have blinders on, or you could say that like there's a veil over, and it's like, yes, however you want to look at this, we are creating a way to like uncover some of the things that go not talked about.
I love it.
All right. Well, this has been fun.
This is fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing it more and more.
What do we want people to think about?
That's a great question. This is where my mind goes, is if you're listening to this and thinking about all of the ways in which you don't do this, just potentially entertain the question, like, what would it look like if I was? Like, entertain the opposite perspective. Because that's pushback. What you're experiencing is a rejection of something before you totally understand it, which is usually a helpful guide that maybe it is going on. Because we all do it.
We do. Yeah, I agree. I think I feel confident sitting here talking about it because I watch people who have been stuck for so long and see so many therapists over the years be able to make sustainable change by understanding a few of these concepts. And it is not like they don't have to read 10 books. They don't have to do a ton of things. They just have to sit in the muck. And I always say we have to sit in the swamp. That's probably actually what I say more than anything. The muck is similar because the muck is part of the swamp, but depends on the swamp you're in, I guess. I don't know. But to really be able to sit in the uncomfortable parts of this and share these things and sit in it, yeah, that's where shit changes.
I like that. How would you answer the question you asked me?
What did I ask you?
What do you want people to think about?
That I didn't ask that? I didn't answer that? Okay, fine. I'll answer it again. What do I want people to think about? I want people to think about what makes them feel safe. Because if safety is one of my core values, and you listen to the end here, I want you to think about what makes you feel safe and how do you know when you're safe.
I like it. Until next time.
Until next time. I can't even say it. Edit that out. Until next time.